strongest cat here. Yeah, baby. Yeah, okay. Oof. Gotcha. The recollection I have from 1987 in long-term memory, outside of general growing up stuff, includes having independently arrived at the ancient astronaut theory for modern religion's origin. Kind of the, falling asleep, bedtime thoughts, you just kind of, your brain goes all over the place. And I had this realization, and it was huge. And I jumped up out of bed and I wrote it down. It's the first time I'd ever had like an idea. And I was just, I got to write that down. I can't forget it. Because you get so many things that come through your mind that you'll be like, whoa, on this thought. And then you think that you'll remember it. You think to yourself and say to yourself that you'll remember it. And then you go about your way and you do your thing and you completely forget it. You may never remember it. Sometimes you do. That's something that for many years I strove to be able to do, is to recall things without having to write them down. Although the best way to remember something for future recall is to write it down. Soon after that, though I don't think it was the same night, I had a dream that was, I recall it as a dream. I don't know. Existential questions about the nature of reality is what we're talking about. I had what I recall as being like a hyper-realistic dream, because in it, I thought it was just real life day to day, but recalling it, I don't remember how I arrived at the point that I was at on that day. I don't think, even when it happened, that there was recollection, because by then I was into dreams. I was a fair oneironaut. Reality sucked and dreams was where it was at. So, spotlight's coming on. I had this dream, and it was just sitting at my desk being bored in the middle of school. And I looked out the window, and it was kind of a slightly overcast, but a bright day over top. And then all of a sudden, there was just a great flash from a single point in the sky. And that was it. I woke up. The thing is, the experience prior to it was what I later had come to read, just, in perusing all the bizarre things that have been, I don't know, let me rephrase that. Perusing things that tended to be fringe when it came to, mystified topics, things that there was not a lot of information about. And what I'd read about was the thing that was called exploding head syndrome. And that was actually what it felt like, because it felt like the entire world exploded. And the thing is that it's possible that I had an exploding head moment when I was a kid. A lot of weird instances, obviously, if you saw my last video. A lot of things. There was a lot of things that they, I think, just didn't understand, didn't know to be watching for. I can't fault my parents, because it's like their parents failed to inform them. The world that they came into did not have the information or the connectivity that we have. You can't 2020 hindsight blame things like that. So they're just, what it comes to is it's something that is like, there's so many things that I've experienced that are like, this could have been for example, an exploding head incident. Maybe I actually did like faint in the middle of school or something. And they just were like, wow, I remember some doctor visits or something. There was, it took 4 adult nurses to hold down 11-year-old me getting a shot. Oh, we got to get your boosters. I was like, no, 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 no. I wasn't afraid of needles. I've given blood before. Like that's not what it was. It's just for whatever reason, it was just something new inside me, something totally new that was something I didn't want. And it took that many people to hold me down. I found that when those kind of things happen with kids, it means that you should back off. It doesn't mean you should force it. Yes, thank you, baby. That's been my experience for reasons that, you find out in time. Could be unintended consequences of things that, children with who knows what kind of divine protection just naturally knowing to avoid. My earliest recollection in any kind of context of dream or whatever else is an idea of witnessing my own birth. Or not witnessing, but recalling. And it's, I've encountered people that have claimed that. They've never really gone into it. I know that what my subconscious showed me in a dream by about age 5 or 6, I think, was using archetypes drawn from Star Wars. Being born in 1980, by that time, we would have had all 3 on home video. Not that they were for sale on home video, but we had all 3 of them. And what the recollection has is I was in one room and it was slightly dark and it was comfortable. And Mom was there. And then, after some hesitation, passing through a doorway into a much brighter room with many people. Darth Vader was standing next to the door, because Vater is German for father, V-A-T-E-R. So, Darth Father was standing next to the door. And no one was enemies, and because, Darth Vader's the bad guy in Star Wars, and that was the image that my mind showed me. But again, this is years after the conclusion of the trilogy and what we saw of Anakin's redemption arc, which is what the original trilogy is Anakin Skywalker's redemption arc. Consult the archetypes videos in my playlist from many years ago. And the last thing that I remember in it was something, and understand that this is a dream that I had as a kid. This is not the personal opinion of the dude you see speaking. But for whatever it was, it seemed to indicate something about he's the one. And I know that when I was a kid getting older and interacting with my parents, that questions I had about myself something that my dad had said was to the effect of, if someone was a prodigy, they should be raised as if they were normal so that they don't get a big head about it. It was just said like one time when I was young, but it was one of those things that just kind of from time to time would come back. So maybe he said it multiple times, and that's all my mind remembered, because I know you'll tell a kid a thing a million times and they'll be like, you never told me. And it's like, well, if you told them 1,000,001 times, then they'd remember it. Sounds like a joke, but it actually works that way too. So taking the knowledge I've gained of step parenting and child rearing and applying it to my own memories, I'm able to gain some clarity in the processes and things that I experienced as a child. And I know, like, my folks always got me thinking kids' toys. I was into Transformers. I was into He-Man. I was into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But a lot of the stuff I got was either like, you can play with this with the things that you have from those things, or you can just, but we're going to keep giving you these kind of things. I'd be like, oh, I want the Castle Grayskull playset. And they'd be like, here's an enormous amount of constructs. Build your own. And I would. But they were hesitant to put me into ELP. They were worried that it would impact me socially. And I don't know that that was the case. I think ELP was probably about the best thing that could have happened to me in school. But then when I wanted to get into artistic things, the school wouldn't let me into any programs. So what they called VAPA, which is, I don't know what it stood for. ELP was Extended Learning Program. It was the smart kids class. They had, time where we'd be like, these kids are already passing these sections. The teacher's going to teach these courses to the other kids, and we're going to go have our little group over here. And it was the Smart Kids Club or whatever. This was from like 3rd to 5th grade, continued through 6th and 7th. I think by 8th, I stopped going. I would rather just be in classes, or I think I was finally getting honor roll. They were like, you're testing so high, but your grades are trash. What's up? Well, go back to my previous video. That has to do with an interruption in my life that took place that nobody seemed to recognize had happened or did anything about. So even when it was like clearly out, like, the things that happened to me happened to my sister as well. And she was the one that had said something to my parents. And initially I'd been kind of convinced into, I'm avoiding using specific terms, by the way, but had been convinced into going along, and so felt betrayed. It took me a while to get my head out of that space, and then to get over the fact that my head had been twisted into that kind of space. That's the thing that really messes with you. So there was some amount of the school system just being like, yeah, man, we're going to put him in these kind of courses because, we're going to put you in the advanced classes and whatever. Of course, I did dismally at math, and they didn't really know what to do about that. Common Core, by the way, doesn't make sense to me in the slightest either. So it wasn't something like that. It was whatever it was with me. It was either I felt like it was test anxiety, or it was some kind of, I don't know if it's a cognitive blind spot or some kind of dyslexia to do with the order of operations internally or something. But like, even working things out on paper, I would get wrong answers. Like the calculator, sometimes you get a 2 + 2 that doesn't equal 4 kind of thing. I don't understand it. I've never understood it. My means of getting around it was using like mnemonic tricks and mind hacks to basically strengthen my ability to photographically recall things, and then to basically have kind of I had to write out like times tables, like things I hated doing in school but did, but it's like I never stored them because I wasn't interested in them. And it's like I went through and drew out massive multiplication tables and money math and other things that I still have access to in my mind that eventually become internalized. But it's like they didn't understand at the time how we really learned. They just kind of had some things, the ability to teach or whatever. And even now, like, I mean, clearly somebody knows how we learn because they're using it to miseducate all the kids. But certainly how I was able to learn was that involved creating tables and mental they're almost like thought pictures or whatever but to be able to internalize the functions of things like doing math in your head. Most of what I do for math in my head is based on memorization of tables, not actual computation. I'm able, I think, to compute in other areas, but when it comes to just doing math, like that's always been a hindrance. But so going back, I had all of these like smart kid toys that I was expected to play with. And I think what happened was, in some sense, they really didn't know about autism at that time. What little they did know, I don't think they were doing the autistic people right. There was a misunderstanding of what's going on that has since, become more known and understood. That's one of the few really good things that's come out of our modern society, I think, is a better understanding of autism. But at the same time, that society and its culture kind of contributes to what causes that, I believe. And on that part of the topic, I won't go any farther because they like to flag and tag things. But suffice to say, my nickname as a baby was Wrong Way Peach Fuzz because I could only crawl backwards. And you think, oh, that's funny. Yeah, man, totally. It's cute and it's funny. But it's one of those indications of something like autism. A long time later, tail end of 2009, I did a thing, attempted. And since then, have fought off any inkling to do the same again. Something that strained my relationship with my mom, recording this on Mother's Day. Had my memento mori yesterday, waking up, choking. Thinking about things, and someone says something about Mother's Day, and I'm like, oh, fuck, it is Mother's Day. I was about to let it pass. However, as time has progressed, I have been able to, just through the coincidence of the way that things happen to be, have been able to somewhat repair the damaged attachment with my mother internally, because maternal attachment is vital to your ability to function and not be some kind of a psychopath or antisocial. And I mean that in the most literal sense. The worst reactive attachment disorders are typically maternal. And severed maternal attachment causes people to say, do, and think and be things that are not acceptable, they're not okay, or they are just constant failure. And the only way to remedy that is to find some way to repair that attachment. And the first thing you got to do is even get that person to understand that there is an issue. And the worst of those disorders are not capable of doing so. In my case, I think I've just been lucky. There's been the ability to meet people and find ways to hack my brain into not having that negative state anymore. So I've been pondering since the previous video. What are people going to think? What's it going to mean? What's the question? I've heard some say that autism is like having a pocket universe in your head. And I believe my pocket universe was created due to what retrospectively could be referred to as like an Akira moment. Some point at the tail end of the 1980s. I know it certainly informs my navigation through my life. The sense of this other part of my mind. It's big. It's got everything I've ever thought, known, envisioned, experienced, anything that's even really been around me. The subconscious stores to it as well. But it basically is like having, instead of just being able to recall information, there's an entire realm to explore that contains that information, including all of the subconscious's other ways of permutating information, which results in things like having an imagination. I mean, for me, I'm just putting all these pieces together too. There are things that I say and do that I do not fully understand until later. Bro, go up that way. There's so many spider webs up there. This fly. Now, around the time of the attempted thing, what I will from this point on just refer to as the Frabjous Day, was some of my transcendental and almost paranormal breakthroughs in my quest for enlightenment. And a lot of things caused me to not question reality, but to understand that what our minds present to us as the mundane, as well as all of the nonsensical bullshit that occurs within the mundane, could just as well be static pareidolia, where you're looking at a static screen and you think you see things going on, that our entire human existence, what the ancient Gnostics would have referred to as Yaldabaoth's universe and all of that, is just an hallucination. And that the real reality is that whoever is actually experiencing reality and not simply a background extra character is generating their own reality, as well as themselves. And I know, like in my case, there's a number of instances that I've seen make me wonder how many times I've actually perished, died for real, and then just felt like I woke up in a new place from a weird, crazy dream. How many times that's happened, whether that's actually what's happened. Is there a point to this? No. Just like in life. It's not that nothing matters, but if there's a possibility that all of that static pareidolia is just something to distract from whatever the negativity of self-generating your own reality is, it's just dreams, it's whatever, but that would imply that our dreams mean nothing. So if anything matters within the static pareidolia of the mundane, our dreams also matter. And if our dreams matter, then something in the static pareidolia of the mundane matters. I think that's all I'm needed to convey.